All right, so this is part 2 of the prepping a DBQ for the 2020 AP exam. In the first video, we went through each document and got as much information out of each one as we could. Now what I'm going to do is just quickly outline it and put those puzzle pieces that we got from the first part into something that kind of looks essay-like. So I'm not writing the essay, I'm just outlining it so you could see how all the pieces fit together. So first thing in the essay is going to be your introduction. We've already covered everything that needs to go into the introduction. So we've got our context and our thesis. If you don't remember what those are, refer back to the first video. We went over both of those things. So we're going to jump right into body paragraph 1. And if you remember, the topic of this essay is evaluate the extent to which railroads affected the process of empire building. So what we're looking for are effects created by railroads. So we're just going to do this one first and think about the social or cultural effects of railroads on empires. Okay, so if we had to boil down all the things that we've been thinking about in terms of social or cultural effects, basically that comes down to this idea that we want to unite all the colonial and non-colonial subjects, in this case we mean the Europeans, under the same banner. We want to get them all on the same page. Or, in other words, we want to put them all in the same nation. We want to put them all in the same nation. And if you remember back to what a nation is a group of people that share a common history, culture, cuisine, dress, what have you, language, religion. So what we want to do through the use of railroads is make all of these people, whether they live in Europe or India or Africa or even New Zealand, put them all in the same nation. That's what we're trying to do here through the use of railroads. So what I'm going to do is just go through each document and pull in things that the rubric requires us to have. If you're watching this video, it might be a good idea to have the rubric available to you so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but just a short little cheat sheet over here. These are the things that your body paragraphs need to have in them. They need to have a discussion of the documents and why they support the topic sentence. To get all the points on that, you need to do that 4 times. I'm kind of recommending that you do that 2 times, but see how the process feels for you. 2 times will get you 1 point, 4 times will get you 2 points. We also want to have in our body paragraphs outside evidence. And again, why it supports the topic sentence. And you want to do that 2 times. And you're also going to want to have the sourcing. So you're going to want document sourcing and why it supports the topic sentence. And you're going to want to have that 2 times. So hopefully through all of this, I will show you lots of examples of how to draw that stuff in. Remember, you don't have to do it as many times as I'm going to do it, but I want to show you how to do it multiple times so you can see what you need to do at a minimum 2 times or 4 times, 2 times, and 2 times. Okay, so back to our body paragraph. So let's do document 1 first. All right, so document 1. So this is our discussion of document 1 and how it fits into this body paragraph. So if you remember, document 1 is a petition, which, by the way, is a very British, or we could even say Western thing. I mean, you guys have signed lots of petitions. It's a very Western thing to do. And the petition was to better the conditions of high caste Indians on railroads. Or in other words, they want to be treated as British. They want to be treated as British. So in this sense, you can make an argument that they've already completed that goal, that they want to make the Indians feel British. These high caste Indians want to be treated the same as British, and they're taking a very British approach to this, or at least a Western approach to getting this done. They're signing a petition. Now we can go even further into this. They make a reference to the middle passage. Now, we know the Middle Passage as that horrible transatlantic voyage that African slaves took during the slave trade. But this also should be a reference to something that the British hold very near and dear to them, because the Middle Passage was a British historical invention to help eliminate slavery. Remember, the British were some of the very first to fight against the institution of slavery. So the fact that these Indian people are referring to something that means something to the British, again, shows that they have embraced the idea of being British. And we can even go one step further with this whole Middle Passage thing. I mean, this might count as outside evidence if you want to elaborate a little bit more on that. By itself, that probably wouldn't help you, because it really doesn't have anything to do with railroads or empire building. You could make an argument. But for the purposes of what we're doing, it may not really help you. What it might help you do is show how important this is to the Indians. Obviously, being treated poorly on a train is not anything like how the Africans were treated on that trip. But what it does tell you is the lengths that the Indians are willing to go to be treated like the British. So in that sense, you get this idea that, yeah, these guys have embraced being British. Whether or not they actually want to be British or they just want to be treated like they used to be treated, like high caste Indians, that doesn't really matter. But the point is, the British are being very successful in uniting all of these people in the British nation. Okay, let's move on to another British document. Let's look at document 3 for a minute. So document 3 is that map. And so what this does, this map in a New Zealand newspaper, and here we're not really going to look at the railroad or the map of Africa. We're going to really do that stuff in the next body paragraph where we talk about political stuff. But the fact that this is a map in a New Zealand newspaper is a big social and cultural effect, because the point is that we want to draw the New Zealanders into the process of empire building in Africa to make them, meaning the people in New Zealand, part of it. Now, why do we want to make the people in New Zealand part of the process of empire building in Africa? Well, let's think about it like this. If you look at that and you're a British colonial subject, the map is basically saying to them, aren't you proud to be British? Look at this and see what not just the British, not just the Africans, and see what we've done. We're drawing the New Zealanders into this. Look and see what we've done. Isn't this impressive? Aren't you proud to be British? And we can go one step further. And we can say that this helps to make everyone happy. And we've been saying since the very beginning of our courses that if everyone in the empire is happy, then the empire is stable. So if New Zealand is happy, then the empire is happy. See, we're not even looking at what's happening on the map. We're just using the sourcing here to make a point about this. Okay? And again, what we're doing is we're taking these New Zealanders, drawing New Zealand into the process of empire building in Africa through this map of a railroad, and connecting that back to our topic sentence. Okay, let's leave the British behind and let's talk about the Ottomans for a second. We're going to get a similar subject with the Ottomans. So what the Ottomans are saying, the purpose of this document is to get, instead of all the British, all the Muslims under the same banner, under the same, in this case, Ottoman banner. And why do they want to do that? Because the guy running the Ottoman Empire is also the caliph. And we want to get all of the Muslims under the same Ottoman banner through an impressive engineering process. So we're going to build a railroad. Now, we've been talking about this since the very beginning of our courses, and we've brought this idea up several times, that monumental architecture, these impressive engineering feats, these unite people together. So we can make a connection here to things like Versailles, the Suez Canal, if you want to talk about one that was done by Muslims, the Suez Canal. If you want to go way, way back, you can connect it to the pyramids, that through impressive engineering processes, feats, monumental architecture, that this helps to unite people on the same page, under the same nation. So again, if the point of this is to talk about how we're uniting all of these people under the same banner, this does that. We might also think about the audience for this one. The audience is the Sultan. And he might do it. He might do this if we flatter him enough. Okay. Let's do one more for this first body paragraph. So this body paragraph about social or cultural effects of railroads. Let's talk about document 5. So this is talking about the same process. Railroads help to civilize people. I'll put civilize in quotation marks. Railroads help to civilize people. Now, this one brings in a different side of the argument because the audience here are not colonial people. The audience here are French, meaning from France, colonial officials. And the purpose here is to convince them that building railroads is a good thing to do. And he talks about this, the author of document 5 goes on and talks about how this is their duty, that we have to help these people overcome poverty and barbarism. This is like a pep rally. This is like a pep rally. Convincing these people, these French colonial people who have left France and gone to French West Africa, that this is a good thing to do. And again, we need to convince everybody to be in the same nation, not just the colonial people, but also the people who live in France. We have to convince them that this is a good idea too. And if we want to bring in some outside evidence here, this is a great place to bring in the white man's burden. If you remember, we've talked about that poem. Again, because the white man's burden convinces the British, in this case, that this is a good thing to do. In fact, Kipling wrote it for the Americans, to tell the Americans that this is a good thing to do. You might also want to bring up that Pear's soap ad that I showed you. The one where the white guy is washing his hands and how cleanliness is the best thing for people. It lightens the white man's burden. That might also be a good thing to do. Because this convinces them that this is a good activity. That helping these people is what we should be doing as Europeans, as British, as French, as Americans. And again, this ties it back into the idea that the point of this is to unite these people under the same nation. Make sure that you're always tying it back into that topic sentence. Okay, so that's body paragraph 1. Do you have to include everything in there? Absolutely not. But you need to include some of it, and hopefully I've given you enough ammunition to knock this out, that I've shown you multiple ways of doing it. What I want to do now is talk about body paragraph 2. Flip the page. I'm going to flip this over so I can write on the back of it. Everybody good for me to flip it? I'm going to flip it in 3, 2, 1, flipping. All right, so body paragraph 2 is not going to be as long, but it's just as important. Body paragraph number 2, and this is all about our political effects. Now, the political effects are a little bit harder to boil down into one coherent topic sentence statement, but I think what we can say is that railroads make us, meaning our nation, our empire, look bigger and or we can make our rivals look smaller. So we can be bigger and stronger, or we can make our political rivals look smaller. So we can make ourselves look bigger, or we can make our rivals look smaller, and we can do both at the same time sometimes. Okay, so let's go through these. And I'm going to use some of these documents twice because some of them have more than one thing to say. And that's good. You want to do that if you can. So let's go back to document 2. So for this, we want to say that foreign trips to Mecca, which is what this is all about, humiliate Muslims. The document even says that. So it says, Muslims going on pilgrimage must either use foreign ships or they are subject to humiliation. So it's not good that they use foreign boats to get to Mecca. We want to do this ourselves. We want to do this ourselves. We also want to increase the Sultan's power, which we can do by building a railroad in his name. Now, what's the context for this? What outside evidence, what sourcing could we bring in for this? Well, this is all happening after a number of Ottoman Empire humiliations. Right? So they lost the Crimean War, or well, they didn't lose the Crimean War, but they were helped in the Crimean War because they would lose. Remember, there were also those capitulations, which gave the Europeans a lot of power in the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottomans feel humiliated by European powers, and they feel they need to catch up. And how better to look bigger and more powerful than by completing a railway line? something that will show off their wealth and power. All right, let's take a look at document 3. So let's look at the map. So document 3, now we're actually going to use the map for this. So again, no document, I think, does a better job of highlighting our topic sentence. Look at how big we are. Look at how big the British Empire is in Africa. And we're telling the entire world, we're letting New Zealand know about this. Look at how big and powerful we are. Now, I want to highlight something in the map. Right there, it says German East Africa. Another thing we might want to bring up is look at how small the German footprint is. Who is Britain's greatest rival in Europe right now? They're about to fight in World War I 15 years after this. It's Germany. We want to show how small and weak the Germans are compared to us. They're no match for us. We're big and powerful. Also, we also want to bring up this idea that bigger, happier empires are more stable. We want to keep people happy. And by showing everybody that, yeah, all of this stuff that you're doing is paying off. I mean, look, we've conquered almost the entire continent of Africa. People are happy. And again, that ties us back into our topic sentence. All right, last document we've got to talk about, and that's document 4. Haven't talked about 4 yet. But document 4 is pretty straightforward, and it fits really nicely into this whole body paragraph. The British have got to do something to protect their interests in China, like the Russians have done with the Trans-Siberian Railroad. Now, here, the context matters a lot. This is written in 1901. We don't know exactly when in 1901 this is written, but we do know that in 1901 we had the Boxer Rebellion. And that is probably influencing why Sir Henry Norman is saying this, that in case the Chinese were to have another rebellion, we have to build a railroad or some kind of technological solution to get our interests protected like the Russians have done. And if we want to bring in some outside evidence here, we might want to bring up the Opium Wars and show that technology helps to win wars. like steamships did in the Opium War in China. So same thing. We have to make sure that we are a couple of steps ahead of the Chinese technologically to make sure that we can hold on to what the British have. You might also want to bring up something like the Maxim Machine Gun. Again, tying the idea that technology like steamships and railroads and machine guns, all of these things help win wars and keep the Europeans on top. So in that case, maybe the rivals aren't necessarily always European. Maybe sometimes they're Chinese. But railroads and other types of technology help to keep you 1 or 2 steps ahead of your rivals. Yeah, so I think that's enough. Remember, at the end, if you've got time in your conclusion, restate your thesis if you've got time. But hopefully, in talking about all of this, you've seen how all of those puzzle pieces fit together in an essay. If you have questions, you know how to get in touch with me. But I'm going to sign off there. So again, if you like what you've seen here, crush that subscribe button, and I will see you online. So talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.